Welcome to Show Your Priors. We're your co-hosts, Michael Nichols and Jason Thompson. We're a business strategy podcast. We look at the week's latest stories and rip them apart to see what strategies and innovations lie underneath. On tonight's show, Google had their biggest I/O conference ever. We'll dive headfirst into that. And then SpaceX filed their S-1 in preparation for their IPO. We've read it, and we're going to tell you all the dirty details. But first, let's take a look at the headlines. A federal jury in Oakland took less than 2 hours to throw out Elon Musk's lawsuit against Sam Altman and OpenAI earlier this week. And the only real outcome was dirty laundry being aired all around. Mike, what did you think of the verdict?
I think you first have to look at this and say that the decision was based on the statute of limitations running out. So it says absolutely nothing about the merits of the case in either direction. But I think you nailed it. There was dirty laundry that came out in this very short trial. I think Elon already knew that the statute of limitations had run. So he probably has some sort of PR motive in his brain, even if he was going to lose this, to bring out some of this dirty laundry. Now, some of his came out, and one of them was, of course, the XAI, right, uses OpenAI or ChatGPT's model to train its own model, essentially, is the best way to say
Distill, yeah.
Distill. There's distilling going on in the mountains of West Virginia.
Well, enough of that. Let's move on.
I think the thing to think here is some of the articles around this were saying that this shows that Elon is flailing, that his XAI strategy and Grok, they're flailing. Some of the statistics out there that they were using were that OpenAI is able to convert 6% of its free users into paying users and Grok or XAI only 1%. I think that's flawed to look at the percentages there because I think they have fundamentally different models. So Grok is wrapped up in the X Premium package. It's not sure that that's the same kind of business model that OpenAI is pursuing. So that was a little bit confusing whether they're actually competing. Elon has several times said they're not competing. OpenAI is a frontier model. Grok is not.
Yeah.
Grok has positioned itself as a truth teller to support X in that environment. But it is wrapped up in what we're going to talk about a little bit later, SpaceX, XAI, Cursor, this whole ecosystem that's being built. So that's what made it interesting because I think most people saw this as an attempt from Elon to kill a competitor, but it's not entirely clear exactly what they're competing on.
So do you think the strategy here was poor just because of the result, or do you think it was worth a shot from what Elon, because Elon brought the lawsuit? And
well, I'm a big fan of trying whatever, right? Experimenting. Yeah. And it's clear because there was other information that leaked during the time of the trial, right? Other board members coming out and saying Sam Altman, some of his behavior was not exactly kosher, has a very unconstrained view of what the truth is. These are just some of the comments that came out.
Yeah.
And it could have been simply, he knew. Elon's smart. He has good lawyers, of course. That he had no chance at winning this. But some of that dirty laundry could have brought Sam Altman's shine down a few rungs. So that could have been the entire strategy. It's just a PR strategy in the end. And if he got lucky somehow, potentially they could damage the IPO of OpenAI coming out. So did he think he was going to win? I think that's unlikely. He knows what a statute of limitations is. Did he think it might damage the valuation of OpenAI with some of these revelations coming out about Sam Altman? Perhaps, but I don't know.
Well, it reminds me of something that I've heard, I can't remember where, but that billionaires will spend millions upon millions of dollars just to make themselves look better than one another or win a grudge, that type of thing. Money's no object when it comes to that type of issue. And this really felt like that to me, is a grudge match.
Given how many people feel about Elon, and the attacks that he sustains, he has good lawyers.
Oh, for
There's
sure.
no way he didn't know
Yeah.
that was a risk.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, maybe he accounted for that, and I don't know what his play was. He came
You
out
never
looking
know.
worse to me than Sam did, even though Sam doesn't look great either. But
I think that's the main result. Is they both look like children
Yeah.
coming out of this, and both companies, I think, were damaged from going through this. The question is, will Elon's company and this future IPO of SpaceX, right,
yeah,
coming up, will it be damaged? If you look at the valuation, potential valuation, looks like not. So maybe it was worth it in the end.
yeah. Well, the leak I'm looking for from Elon's camp is to know who he paid and how much he paid for his Diablo characters to get leveled all the way up to the best in the world.
Yes.
All right, let's move on now to NVIDIA, who posted another record quarter. But the bigger news here was that Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, claiming that he had found a brand new $200 billion market in AI purpose-built CPUs. They also disclosed $43 billion in startup equity stakes, and their next-gen Vera Rubin rack is priced twice as high as their current offering at $7.8 million per unit.
I think before we jump into this one, can you explain to people the difference between a GPU and a CPU?
Sure.
Because that has to do with whether there's really a new market there or not.
Yeah. So a CPU is something that is the fundamental piece of your computer. It's the brain of your computer. It is where the ones and zeros are processed. A GPU processes what it was primarily for was for the video output. Now, in order for it to do that effectively, it's essentially a mini computer of its own that's plugged into your motherboard. So if you have one of these gaming graphics cards for home use, it is a full-on computer just on itself that sits on top of your motherboard, and it outputs high-end graphics, 3D graphics, renders, that type of thing, real-time physics. But what it does great, and the reason it's been good at Bitcoin mining or crypto coin mining and AI, is because it is specifically designed for those high computational factors that go hand in hand with 3D graphics processing, and it can do it really quick, and it was already really good at it. And now they've just refined that and refined that and refined that, so it is very good at high bulk numerical tasks in a way that the processor isn't. It doesn't multi-threaded. There's a lot more threads. Anyways, there's a number of reasons that it's better at this type of compute than a CPU is traditionally. Now, this new processor that Jensen's talking about is going to be, I believe, for not training, but the other type. I don't know why I can't think of it right now.
Inference.
Inference, thank you. It's going to be for inference. And
agentic workflows. Yeah.
Agentic workflows. Agents are going to use it. That's correct. So it's going to have ways to better interact with the agents and inference. And it's designed specifically for that thing. So when you're looking at computer chips, whether it's a CPU or a GPU processor, there are different components of that. There's different pieces of silicon that are copper lined together, or in the future, maybe even fiber lined together, or in some cases not separated at all. They're still connected on the same piece of hardware. But anyways, those architectures serve different purposes in different ways. So if you make an architecture that is better for agentic compute, that's what we're talking about here. And that's the new CPU that Jensen is
So why
planning
did I ask you that? Because last week we did a bit on Hannibal and Carthage and the organizational DNA of Carthage and Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And when you want to think about business strategy in general, you need to be aware of what your capabilities as a company are if you want to redeploy your capabilities into new markets. Because the key word was, this is a 200 billion new market for us, right?
Yeah.
It's an unlock for us.
Yeah.
So if you look at NVIDIA, what was their original DNA? Gaming, graphics, right? Now they've taken that capability and they've gone into places like automotive where nobody saw it coming, but the path was clear with those capabilities. They opened up that market. They've entered into that. They've gone into AI heavily, and they've benefited heavily from that. So this may be a new market for them, CPUs. And you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are already companies there. Intel, AMD. Now, he did twist it a little bit and say AI-specific CPUs. right?
Yep.
So he's saying NVIDIA has created something specifically for AI that maybe the others haven't. But that market already exists. So they're going into a market which can be a red ocean, and you got to figure out what other capabilities may NVIDIA have where they can actually enter and succeed in this market. They've already pumped out 20 billion on this, right? In revenue from this. So that suggests
Just this year.
they are, yeah, just this year, they are already able to compete. Now, why? Again, they own customers probably where they can go ahead and sell CPUs with the GPUs.
Oh yeah, one throat to choke is for a lot of companies it's just a better way to operate. So if you have a company that comes into a different vertical or a different stack, sells now a CPU, and you can get that same company's GPUs and CPUs under the same contract, it's just simpler. Yeah.
Remember my refrain: if you own the customer and the channel, and you can cross sell and create new capabilities into that same channel and with those same customers, yes. In that sense, it's not exactly a new market. It might even be the same customers. You're just adding new features and products, cross-selling products into that same channel. That's probably why they were able to do 20 billion so fast. So I would say, yeah, this is a great move by them if they're able to hold off all those other competitors. And they probably have a skill those other competitors don't on the GPU side, right?
Yeah.
So probably the marketing strategy here is, along with the actual business strategy, is we now have hardware capabilities all across AI for all your needs, from the training to the inference to the agentic workflows. We're there to give you the best speed possible, period.
Yeah. So just because this chip is marketing towards AI, and I don't know, I don't know what its capabilities are or whatever, but just because it's being marketed AI right now doesn't mean it won't be the best thing for gaming or home computing either. It depends on the whatever is built around it, I guess, if they want to aim at that direction or not. Because in the past, NVIDIA's like top of the line graphics cards have been for scientific research essentially, but if a lot of home gamers got their hands on it, it happened to be the best gaming card for that year. Each year was the scientific one that was really, really expensive. So there's a lot of different, they aim at one thing, but doesn't mean it's not great at the other stuff too. And just a little history lesson here. You said a red ocean. So AMD is Team Red. If you don't know this, gamers know this. AMD is Team Red. Intel is Team Blue, and NVIDIA is Team Green. That's their logo colors. So gamers are going to know that.
But for the strategy people out there, what I'm referring to with the red ocean is the idea of a blue ocean and red ocean strategy. And are you familiar with that?
No, tell me. I want to know.
So there's a lady, I won't go into her name, but there's a book basically called Blue Ocean Strategy. And the whole entire idea is, in strategy, do not go into bloody red oceans where there are already tons of sharks swimming. So when I say a red ocean, I mean it's an occupied territory. Yeah. You want to find open blue ocean that you can swim with your capabilities. But if you're going to enter a red ocean, make sure you have overwhelming capabilities. This goes back to war, that you can win even if it's a red ocean and there are already sharks. And it turns out that gaming was probably the perfect industry, right? The perfect market to train you for what's coming. Did they intend that? No. It's just like evolution in animals. Some animals survive. They didn't intend for the environment to become better for them, but it just did. And that's a lot like what's happening for a lot of companies. Owen Corning, I think we mentioned them, right? Yep. The environment changed for them in a positive direction. For other companies, it's going to go the opposite direction, and you're now maladapted to the environment. So gaming, interestingly, has been at the forefront, I think, of graphics processing, et cetera, which unintentionally, right, gave them a huge advantage for the new environment that we're all living in.
Yeah. They had a lot of they had a lot of holdings that you would expect them to have. NVIDIA did in this disclosure. OpenAI, they have like $30 billion invested there, $10 billion with Anthropic, 2.3 with Cursor, which could be XAI, depending on how things go. They have $6 billion with XAI, 1.7 with Mistral, 2 with Reflection AI. I'm not familiar with them. Anyhow, but it goes on with some more that we've heard of. Nscale, who Meta owns a lot of. There's so much cross ownership between all of the big players right now.
Well, let's call it cross pollination, because
Fair.
You're trying to build a new pie, a new market, right? So NVIDIA has a lot of cash. It's investing it in its customers. right, who will consume its hardware. We're going to see a story later where OpenAI and Anthropic's doing the same, where they're going to be donating tokens to companies that could become their customers. They're building projects, agentic workflows for companies so that those companies become their customers.
Yeah.
So I think this is normal in a market build. Some people could look at it and see it maybe as a shady thing. They're investing in each other. But it's really, I think, just trying to build the pie for everybody in it. Now, if you're not in that game and already established in that game, it's very difficult to join the game.
Yeah, fair. Well, let's talk about another share of that cross-pollination, Anthropic. They've hit profitability, according to them already. They also signed a $1.25 billion per month deal with XAI buying compute from them. And they've also acquired a dev tool startup called Stainless. To me, it seems like they're kind of the early winner here for the IPO wars, but what's your take, Mike?
Well, remember, back to financials, profitability, if it's EBIT we're talking about, doesn't necessarily mean free cash flow. So we have to think about that. They're a startup, so they're investing lots of cash in expansion. You just mentioned one example, 1 point something billion per month, right? And what I found interesting here were a few elements that keep coming up as we talk about Anthropic. One was XAI we just talked about. XAI is giving up the Colossus compute to Anthropic. Does that mean that Grok is giving up? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think it was...
Or it's a different play.
I think Elon is, or the company is smart enough to, they built twice as much as they need. That's just my take.
Yeah. It's sharing a capability, right? You could see it that way too. We talk a lot about that. So that was one interesting thing, that Elon now sees them as a virtuous company because they're spending money on Colossus compute,
True.
Right?
Yep.
Whereas before they were an evil company. Amazing what money does to change your views on people. And then the other part I was thinking about was last week we just talked about Microsoft ending the license or using in-house Anthropic's Cloud Code.
Cloud Code licenses are done. Yeah.
They're done. So we perceive that as Microsoft enforcing its ecosystem power to say, you're actually producing better tools than us. We have to cut you off because you're a threat to us. Now, here's what you would want to do maybe if you're Anthropic. This is what it got me thinking about. Can you do an end around and say, well, look, Microsoft, actually, we're getting profitable in enterprise. We're going enterprise hard. We're getting actually lots of traction. We're going to commoditize you. You know how we're going to do that? Here's what we're going to do. We consume Excel. Excel is just an input into an agentic workflow and an output, but we own the workflow, right?
Yep.
So you move yourself, you inject yourself farther up, closer to the customer in the value chain, which is where there's more value. So that would be a way, if you're Anthropic, you'd think about, okay, we're going to go around that Microsoft ecosystem and commoditize them. Now that's difficult because of licenses and everything else. There's still Copilot. There's all the Microsoft suite out there. So that was just one thing I was thinking. Is this the direction they're going? Because they bought the DevTool thing you saw there.
Yep.
They acquired that. Are they preparing for war against Microsoft?
Well, we're going to talk about Google's I/O conference here in a bit, but Microsoft needs to take hard note of what Google just did, because they need to be doing the same thing. I mean, Google rebranded itself essentially, and has put AI between all of its software and integrated everything. And it was very interesting to me the direction they went.
But we talk about capabilities, and I often liken companies to animals. You have a DNA, and the difference between a company and an animal is an animal can't really change the DNA. If it becomes maladapted to the environment, it's over, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of companies, that is true. If the environment changes and you cannot adapt, you become maladapted and you die. The question is, can Microsoft change fast enough?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Because that transformation of your DNA takes a long time and costs a hell of a lot of money to do.
Yep.
And it's risky. You may choose the wrong capabilities. You may choose the wrong market. So This whole game, this is why Joseph Schumpeter calls it creative destruction. That's what the capitalist machine does. It's a risky ass game. And just because you were successful in the past with your capabilities doesn't mean you will be right now. And maybe it just so happens that Google will be, but it's also not clear, is Google competing against Microsoft in enterprise, or is Google staying in its B2C lane? I'm not sure, because you'd have to clarify that too.
Sure, fair.
Yeah.
And we'll get more into Google I/O here in a bit. It was really interesting. Let's move on to OpenAI. From Anthropic to OpenAI.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. OpenAI claims that ChatGPT has solved an 80-year-old math problem, the Erdos unit distance conjecture, which was first posed in 1946 and was thought to already have been solved to the best of our ability until this week. The claim still needs peer reviews, but does have some independent validation already. Mike, you were pretty gifted in math, if I recall, from high school. What's your take on this?
Math's not my thing. I'm sort of this generalist.
Yeah.
I did, Calc 1 and 2 in high school, but I'm more of a, liberal arts, social sciences guy. But the same people that are saying that looks like it did solve it with an original proof. That's the interesting piece. It's an original proof, meaning that ChatGPT's AI model was able to withstand long reasoning chains, right? And produce something new. That's interesting. But it also suggests, if it can do long reasoning chains, that it may have been using knowledge from other sources, other domains, to help solve it. That's where it gets really interesting. And this is my generalist spin. I think this is where AI beats humans, because we tend to idolize deep specialists and deep domains, deep domain knowledge, like a mathematician. But a mathematician doesn't know economics,
Right.
doesn't know biology, doesn't know evolutionary theory. Now, there are some who are, they're these polymaths. There are those. They're rare, though. That's why it's called a polymath, like very rare. So AI, by definition, is a polymath. So in that sense, this is what was intriguing to me. If AI is going into science, you're going to see, I think, the explosion of multidisciplinary science. And that's intriguing, because you can learn things from others. Some of the greatest scientists of all time were polymaths, right? Name them. Like, just go through them. You can find them.
Leonardo.
The greatest.
Yeah.
Leonardo, right? And probably not a surprise that some AIs call themselves Leonardo, but that's what AI has, that capability to reach across domains, find patterns that others can't find. And just the sheer amount of information it can consume to find those patterns, no human could. You can't even read all the literature in your domain. How would you ever read across domains to find those connections that maybe AI could find? I'm not saying that it did it exactly in this one, but that ability to do long reasoning and incorporate ideas and knowledge from other fields, that's enormous for science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I completely agree. And I don't know if it's interesting it was interesting to me. And my math history is not that so. Anyways, the conjecture is, what's the maximum number of pairs of points that can be exactly distance one apart for any flat plane? And that's for endpoints. So that was the conjecture. It's a little complicated. You have to visualize it a little bit, but basically it's, we thought it was a grid pattern where, there's a distance of one between 2 points and a distance one between 2 points, so on and so forth. I don't know I haven't gone over the solve that ChatGPT found, but
in the kitchen, it's only my wife and I can't be in the same area at the same time. That's all I know.
So
that's the math that I know.
You can exist with a distance of one, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you're hanging out with me, man. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on now to Cloudflare. In early May, Cloudflare CEO Matthew Prince laid off 1,100 people. That's over 20% of their staff, despite posting record revenue growth above 30%. This is a trend we've seen in the past couple of weeks here. Then, just this week, he published an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal detailing how he's making personnel decisions. What was your take, Mike, on Matthew's piece? Can you give us a quick breakdown?
I'm going to hand it back to you for a second.
Okay.
Explain Cloudflare to people
Sure.
because you hear the name a lot,
Yep.
but at least I had to go back and I thought I knew what it was and I did, but I had to go back and look. So I imagine some listeners might want to have a quick breakdown of who it is, what Cloudflare is, and why AI is even relevant at all.
So Cloudflare, you probably heard of last year. I think it was October. Cloudflare had a routine maintenance error cause a nationwide outage where about half of the internet was down for, I think, over a day. I think most of Microsoft was down. Right. Netflix was down. Like tons of stuff that everybody uses didn't work, and it was because of a Cloudflare outage. So that's probably where you've most recently heard of them. But they started off as a CDN, content distribution. So edge computing. Think of, they'll have a server farm in Dallas, one in Houston, one in Chicago, one in New York. And what they started as is they would replicate, let's just say, a video streaming platform, Netflix. Let's just say Netflix. I don't know if they're a customer or not, but they would take Netflix videos and they would copy them to New York and Chicago and Dallas. And then it would deliver to those hubs from a closer distance, therefore decreasing latency, availability, all that kind of stuff. That's how they started. So they have their roots in edge compute and distribution of the network. And so I guarantee you their next play here is edge inference compute. That's going to be where they're headed. It'll be data centers, AI compute. They'll be doing the same things, those same type of data centers that XAI. They'll be a player in that realm pretty soon. But they're a networking company they're basically the middleman for anything on the internet these days.
Yeah. I think it's a good way to think about it. And if I reflect on, I think there was an X post out there explaining his logic for why he was getting rid of his staff despite a spike in actual revenue, right?
Yeah.
So they're actually growing. So again, I think this happened with Cisco too, where they actually grew
Cisco
and then
with
cut workforce. They cut 5%, and you're saying this is 20%. That seems strange, right? It seems like, well, your model is working, so why are you also cutting? His point was, and I'm afraid this may be correct, that he thinks AI will not replace, and this is the most interesting thing to me about the whole story, it will not replace creatives, so creators and sellers. It's going to replace the middle managers, the measurers, he calls them.
Yep.
So people who are doing the Excel, people who are doing the PowerPoint, etc. Now, where I think he's slightly wrong there is that's not the only role those middle managers play, because I would go straight to him and say, well, hell, guy, you're just an elite middle manager as a CEO. Why do we even need you?
Yeah.
Are you a creator, or you may be a seller, right? I mean, a lot of corporate CEOs are sellers in the political sense. They're political operators that made it to the top, and maybe they know how to sell. You have to at least know how to sell politically, right? So they're good messengers, communicators typically. But that's what it made me think of, is like, you are an elite middle manager, so why do we need you? If we have AI, cut your own damn salary. I mean, I know a lot of people would immediately jump to that, but that middle management doesn't only play the role of measuring. They're a political buffer in a lot of cases. So they are what allows unaccountable leadership to get away with being unaccountable. Now, he said it correctly, I think. The thing that AI will allow you to do in the future is measure directly the strategies of those leadership people, right? So they have their strategic thesis. Thesis is just a fancy word for hypothesis. They have a guess, an assumption, and then you go out and test that thesis every year in the market. The theory with AI is, and this is what I wrote my book about, is that AI allows you to sample that market much faster than you ever could before. You get the sales data faster. You get interpretation of the data. You don't need the damn political filters in between.
Right.
But that's also dangerous for the leadership. Because if you don't have the political filters in between, you can see directly that your strategy is not working, or you had no strategy at all. So it cuts both ways. Now, I applaud him for saying that's what we're going to do. We're not afraid of collecting that data. We think that we don't need that middle management layer. I would question why you needed it before, right, in the first place. But that would be my only skepticism there. But I think that's absolutely correct. That I think you can see organizations downsize because your governance layers, collecting the data, processing the data, reasoning over the data to tell you what it means about your strategy and business models and whether your bets are paying off, that's going to come and it's coming fast. But I think it also will come for those CEOs who are purely narrative. That's my great hope, to get rid of the bullshitters.
We will see. I don't know. I was looking for a book, The Theory of Dividing Employees into Builders, Sellers, and Measurers is from a book, and I was looking for the name, but I couldn't find it. Anyways, it's an interesting take. It's bold for a CEO, I think, to put that out there so brazenly. I mean, it was clearly written for a business crowd in the Wall Street Journal, but still, it's as an employee, it
doesn't feel good to be called just the measurer, does it?
I mean, I was in relationship roles, so I didn't, necessarily get attacked, but I know a lot of great managers who did. So I don't know. And I kind of agree with the philosophy. Like, we're going to have to change what we do as a society. Same thing with the elevator operators. Before the automatic elevator, all those people had to find new jobs, new career paths.
Hey, we're both creatives. We think we are.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't if you're listening to this, but we're also musicians and we do other things. We're creators in general.
Yeah.
I still will come back to this. I don't think AI can replace the creators. It won't. It will be a competitor in the sense that it will create AI art. But there will always be a market for human art. There just will be. And probably there's going to be a bigger value proposition placed on that art.
No.
Because it is human made. We talked about the French restaurant last week. It's the same thing. You go to a French restaurant today because it's the 2-star Michelin. It's a famous chef. You want that slowly made, locally grown, or maybe it's sourced from somewhere exotic, some of the spices they're using. So those sorts of authentic experiences, I don't think they go away. They might actually become more valuable.
Yeah.
As you get flooded with AI slop.
Potentially. I think, I just don't think we can see the road yet. Like, I don't think we can see exactly where we're going to land, how creative people are going to start using AI to blow our minds. When you look at when the synth was introduced, big pushback from musicians. Like, that's not music. Now it's everywhere. Now every pop song has synths or, fake false instruments in it. Computerized instruments. It's everywhere now, and it's generally accepted. If you look at, when we started the CGI movement when we started using CGI in movies, there was big pushback against, we need to use practical things. It's just not the same if it's not done practically in camera. And today we're like, oh God, AI in movies, why can't we just use CG? Like, so it's just a stepping stone. And I think there are going to be creatives who embrace it and just find ways to blow our minds with it that we can't even imagine yet. And I'm super excited for that. There's just something new out there. We just don't know what it is yet. It's going to be interesting to see.
We'll see. I mean, there's always been innovation in musical instruments, going back to the Baroque, to the classical. I mean, Mozart himself played on a harpsichord.
Yeah.
Today you learn it on a piano. That's not authentic, right? There's a reason there was a reason he was able to play so fast. And one of the quotes from Beethoven was that, I think it was Beethoven, critiquing Mozart. It sounds like hooky and metallic. Well, yeah, it's a harpsichord, right? Like, it sounds choppy, and
that's what they play in the Monsters intro, right? In the German word,
it's like you would say abgehakt. It like sounds like it's hacked,
Yeah.
And that's what a harpsichord sounds like. Now today, you have people out there who go back and try to play those authentic instruments, and that's interesting, but it's a really small niche, and that's your point. Will some of the old school methods get relegated to such a small niche that it's not so valuable anymore? But we don't know.
Well,
we don't know.
You just brought to mind something from the movie Gattaca. I don't know if you've seen that with Jude Law and Uma Thurman.
Long time ago. Yeah.
Great movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a really sci-fi classic. But it just brings to mind the scene where they're at a piano concert Uma Thurman and Jude Law, or not Jude Law, Ethan, the other guy. Anyways, Ethan Hawke, I think. They were at a concert, and she goes, that piece can't be played without 6 fingers. And they had 6 fingers on each hand because it was a genetically modified society at the time. Anyways, interesting. Okay, let's move into the fire hose. AI business development rep company Artisan began an ad campaign this month featuring billboards in multiple large cities that read, "Stop hiring humans," and "Artisans won't complain about work-life balance."
I think the name is kind of ironic here. Artisan. It sounds like they have not studied the art of marketing.
Yeah.
Are you tone deaf? Are you not seeing the backlash in the public against AI, particularly among the young and some of the politicians, particularly on the left right now, right? Doesn't mean it won't come on the right either, but they really think that's a good one. I mean, they're not hopefully they're not thinking trolling is going to work. I don't think that's trolling. I think they probably thought this is a good message. I don't know. Or they're just trying to get
I think it's attention.
blow up.
Yeah.
Rage bait, right?
Yeah. I think it's attention. I mean, this is exactly why we're talking about it, because it's interesting and like who's posting.
It's rage bait.
It's rage bait for sure. It's a marketing campaign. I think it's a good one. I went to their website and looked at what they offer, and it's
was that artisanal?
Yeah,
that's the word.
Artisan business development. Lead gen. Okay. Sam Altman, OpenAI is offering every Y Combinator startup free or discounted API access. Prior to OpenAI, for just reference, Altman was president of Y Combinator.
Not free. It's an exchange it's a safe. Do you know what a safe is? A simple agreement for equity.
Equity later, right?
It's equity later that can be converted. And so there's a cost, right? Like in life, there's usually a cost on this kind of thing. I thought of this as I was visualizing, a sales funnel. The startups are at the very beginning of the sales funnel. You're prospecting future token buyers.
Yep.
So you hand them some of the heroin, right? At a point where they're particularly vulnerable and tokens cost them a lot of money. They don't have a lot of cash.
Yeah.
So it's a good move there in exchange for future equity. Why is that good for the startup? Well, for the startup, it's equity. So if we never make it, that's on OpenAI, right? It's equity. You're out. It's not debt. There's nothing to pay back anyway. Now, if it works, I think it was an uncapped safe. So the higher the valuation, the better for the startup. So that's good. So if you're a successful startup, OpenAI may benefit. This is the other side. Why would OpenAI do this? So the startup, many have criticized it. It's for the equity stake, future equity stake that can be converted. That depends on the success and the valuation of the startup. Whether it's a good idea for them, we'll find out later. But for OpenAI, this is a good example of optionality. Mm-hmm. Where I give you these tokens, it costs me money to find out whether, 2 things, you will be a good startup, and 2, whether you'll be a customer. And if you're a good startup, what do I get? A piece of your pie. That way, if you don't buy from us, we still get the upside.
No.
So you have built-in optionality. That's a smart move, typically, from the corporate side. Some people might see that as taking advantage of the startup. But that's business, man. You're the one with no leverage. You're the one begging for tokens and needing cash and needing equity, and having, OpenAI on your cap table is not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a lot of those startups would probably jump at the opportunity to have free use of the API and
switch cloud code later.
And also now be attached to one of the biggest companies out there right now. So I don't know. I think it's probably good for everybody.
If you're a startup doing math proofs, good match.
I suppose. I don't know. Maybe there are some math proof startups out there. I'm just not sure. Let's go into one who's probably not a math proof startup, but they could be. We don't know. A company called Hark has raised $700 million for a product almost no one has seen, described only as personal intelligence, massive early capital, essentially zero public information about what it does. What's your take, Mike?
Well, I looked at this one. What's interesting is the strategics on the cap table. right? So strategics typically would mean established corporates. So you have Qualcomm Ventures, Salesforce Ventures,
Yep.
Intel Capital, and I believe NVIDIA,
Yep.
AMD Ventures. Those are not nobodies,
Yeah.
right? So if they're going to invest money, there is going to be, I would expect, significant due diligence. Nobody knows what this thing is, but there has been due diligence around this thing to justify investment from these strategics, right? These institutional strategics. So that's interesting. It makes you think there might be actually something there. And what they're hinting at is a new universal AI interface, like some sort of multi-modality that's going to be created. It sounds like a B2C angle, but that's all we know.
Yeah.
But interesting. Let's
Interesting.
see.
Well, and this is again social proof. This is Brett Adcock's business, and he was the founder of Figure, which is still a private company that will likely IPO maybe sometime in the future, but we'll see. Yeah.
Social proof. Let's just quickly tell people what we mean by that. That in VC, a lot of investment goes to founders who have already been successful. It's also an example of survivorship bias. Just because you are successful with one startup in one domain with one business model and one strategy does not mean you'll be successful with another. Why? Because the base rates for success in the startup world are extremely low, meaning your chance of becoming a unicorn at inception at the seed stage is like 0.6%. Okay? So if you make it, what is the reason you made it? A lot of investors think it's the founder figured it out. It could have been 1,000 other reasons. You die for 1,000 reasons in startup land. It could be other reasons. Now, the question you have to ask, was it really the founder that did that? But once you're successful as a founder, this is what might increase your probability of success as you go. Elon being one of the best examples in the world, you attract more capital.
Yep.
If you attract more capital, you get more shots on goal. And if you get more shots on goal, you have a much higher chance of being a two-time founder, successful founder, three-time, four times, right, with successful exits. And it's just like in book sales. Before Dan Brown had that one book, The Da Vinci Code, nobody knows the guy. But once you have the Da Vinci Code, you can write terrible books after that, and people are going to buy them.
Are you saying
And it's
Dan
just-
Brown's a bad author?
No, but I have friends.
Breaking
I think
news.
he's a good example of riding a particular cultural wave at exactly the right time. It was good on him, right? I'm not criticizing him. My point was, let's say a bad Dan Brown, who's a bad author, right, could have that one success and then benefit and ride on that wave for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's
No, I
the
get it.
same with startup founders.
Yeah.
That's how social proof works. You and I, earlier today, you can show these examples later in the clips. I was sharing a video of Guns N' Roses playing Don't Cry in a bar in LA before they were famous. Nobody's listening.
Yeah.
Why?
not
Because
famous.
nobody knows who they are. They
They
have
don't
no
have the social proof. Yeah.
They don't have the social proof. You sent one to Dave Matthews, this poor guy,
He's playing in a blockbuster. Yeah.
playing at a blockbuster. Songs that you would recognize, like, and everybody thinks these are brilliant songs, right? Like, he's such a great guitarist and artist and singer. Nobody's listening. Nobody cares.
Somewhere in my old like mini like tape recordings, video cassette camera recordings. This is how you held it, by the way. This is why I'm doing this. But
Yeah.
somewhere on a little cassette tape, I have John Mayer playing at University of Central Florida.
Yeah.
Free concert. I was outside for like 20 people. If I could find that, I really would love to. I don't know where it would be. Maybe.
But you've also seen, everybody's seen these famous videos of, concert pianist or concert violinist playing in the subway or in the airport, and people are basically just walking by them, and they're playing some of the hardest pieces on the planet.
Yeah.
And this is actually just a public service message. The social proof is dangerous, right? It's dangerous because you may be just falling for a charlatan and survivorship bias, that you attribute all success to the person and not to the circumstances. luck does help, right? And the question is, which factors dominated? Was it the founder, or was it you got lucky? You rode a trend, and nothing wrong with that. Good on you. But it doesn't suggest that you'll be lucky with your next bet. But having the extra social proof and capital gives you supreme advantages over others because you already have one victory. We rode that one too far, but it's something I think we say social proof a lot. You need to understand what we mean and why it matters, especially in VC.
XAI launched Grok Build, an agentic coding tool positioned directly against Claude Code and OpenAI's Codex. With Grok's consumer usage reportedly declining, this looks like a pivot towards enterprise developer tools.
I don't know how Grok's supposed to penetrate enterprise. I just don't. I mean, my only association of Grok is with X, and X says everything but enterprise to me.
I agree.
Just read the post, right? LinkedIn, if there was a LinkedIn build or a LinkedIn agent, that would make more sense to me. That's perfectly tuned to a corporate audience and corporate platitudes. Grok is anything but, in my mind.
Well, LinkedIn made their AI play. It's you can ask it about jobs.
Yes, and
job
get ghosted.
openings. So is this Cursor? Because this is what Cursor did, right? It was a dev tool. It was a Claude Code competitor. So it could be.
I don't know. Could be.
We'll have to see. Amazon. Let me link these next two together because they're related. Alexa Plus can now generate personalized podcast episodes on demand. Amazon is betting AI-generated audio is the next front in the battle for attention. Spotify, and the same week, has launched now a desktop app for generating personalized podcast episodes for contents you choose. A direct shot at Google's Notebook LM, and there's been some other podcast platforms out there that I've heard of in the past. But what's your take on this, Mike?
I've never used these, so I don't know. My thought was back to capabilities. Spotify has the brand for it.
Yeah.
So presumably,
Well, Amazon has Audible as well, so don't.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it seems like join the party kind of move strategically. Like you have the capabilities, you have the audience, you're already known for a streaming podcast. Why not?
Yeah.
Will Apple do it? Apple Podcast? I don't know.
Probably.
Maybe. Probably.
The original pitch for this, at least the way that I heard it, was with Notebook LM. I think they were one of the first. If not, I don't think they were the first. I think there was maybe another smaller player out there. Anyways, was that a lot of people like to digest information now in podcast format. It's just, they like to listen to it on a walk or at the gym or driving in the car. And for some reason, for a lot of people, it gets into your brain really good in a podcast format. So being able to just type in and say, hey, tell me about, what is Cloudflare in a podcast format. And it has, you can say, give me 2 male hosts, a female
tell
host,
me about those TPS reports.
Yeah, tell me about lumber. Some people just prefer to digest information that way now. And I don't know, I think it's cool, but I think in the same thing we've talked about before is I think podcast authenticity is going to be valued over, I don't know. I'm not worried about, getting
Perhaps
replaced doing this by
AI.
AI.
It's the question. I think there is the social proof on podcasts, right? I mean, it's the same game in podcasting, social proof.
Yeah.
Does
fair.
AI have the social proof? I think one of the analogies maybe has Kindle fared well versus regular books? You would have expected it to displace them, but I was just in Barnes & Noble today. I don't see any slowing down of Barnes & Noble. Now, granted, it's now a toy store and a cafe and
It's a Harry Potter store. That Harry Potter section is massive.
and Lego too.
I don't know. I prefer Kindle, but so I'm a weird person. I don't read a whole lot. Just let me disclaimer. I don't read a ton, but when I do, I prefer reading either on my phone or my Kindle. And I prefer my Kindle because eye strain, all that. Just something about it. It's easier to hold. It's easier to manage for me. But I also love having the physical book. So what I'll do is when there's a book I want to read, I'll get the Kindle version and I'll get the physical copy and keep it on the bookshelf. And I'll actually bend it and look like it's been used even
Yes.
though it hasn't. Just, hey, this into my messed up soul. Okay. Walmart warned its low-income customer base is under severe financial stress, and rising fuel costs will compress its own margins. Walmart's consumer data trends tend to be an early indicator. What do you think?
From what I read in that source, their year over year is up. So the revenue's up,
Right.
right? So I don't think they're seeing it yet. They're projecting it. And I think this is what's difficult right now. Everybody's trying to interpret what will happen because of the protracted war with Iran, a war, right? And what's happening with the Strait of Hormuz and the disruption in the supply chains. And I think they're projecting that these high fuel costs, particularly Walmart, will hit the lower income brackets.
That makes sense.
That's what they're projecting, but it doesn't look like it's showing up in the numbers yet. Apparently, they're forecasting it that it's coming. Now, I've looked at some economists commenting on this, and their statement is it looks like the U.S. economy is able now to withstand fuel shocks much better than in the past. So it's not actually hitting consumers as hard as it could. So that's another perspective out there to think about. And the other thing is, well, if lower income trade down, what are they trading down to? There's nowhere lower to go than Walmart, right? So they may have to, I don't know, skimp on fuel prices. I don't know on fuel. I don't know what they're doing.
I would say Dollar
Carpooling?
General and is lower than Walmart,
Perhaps.
right?
But isn't the same logic true for middle class trading down from Trader Joe's and Target? Wouldn't Walmart just pick up those? Assuming, I don't even know if this is true, Walmart is cheaper. I don't often think it is. It's very similar in
Well,
pricing.
the strategy behind this, in my opinion, is sounding a warning blare before it happens is smart because Walmart's got a lot of pull with, it all goes to lobbying, political policy, getting things done in your favor.
That's where I took it in my head that this war may end and this may never come to fruition. Is they could be sending a message to Washington, fix this, clean this up, or your voters are going to turn on you. I don't know.
Well, Iran seems pretty intent on keeping their nuclear capabilities, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? I guess that's not topic for the show. But Humanoid, let's move on, has announced a partnership with industrial giant Schaefer to deploy thousands of robots into manufacturing facilities. We talked about Humanoid in an earlier episode as I believe they were working on a pilot program with Siemens, if I remember correctly.
That is correct. We have talked about humanoids in 3 particular countries: South Korea, Japan, right? Japan and Germany. I think Korea is another one that we've looked at. Schaeffler is German. Siemens is German. A few other examples we looked at were German. They're all German industrials, and German industrials have been particularly hammered by energy costs. Their energy bets didn't exactly pay off. The Ukraine war erupting disrupted the Russian gas, shut it off. And so they've been hammered on the energy cost front. Their labor costs are extraordinarily high, and they have a high regulatory burden. So if you put all that together, then you have a pretty potent cocktail for exploding cost. And so I saw an article about another German industrial, and the idea was that they're not outsourcing anymore. They're not offshoring their labor. They're going to do humanoids in their home environment. They have strong unions there, and this is the question I had, it'll come up later, is what is the union strategy going to be when your labor costs are causing now companies to capitalize your labor costs and buy humanoids? So a lot of the people are now going to be accusing these German companies of not just using humanoids locally and then moving to China, moving out of Germany. They're not offshoring, they're leaving. And that's a disaster for one of the world's industrial engines. So I think you got to watch this. And if you're invested in Germany and you're thinking about what happens to that SME, small, medium-sized enterprise, up to large industrials, if you invest in that region of the world, know that this is a particular response to that environment. And Schaeffler is a German tier 1 automotive components mobility company like Bosch and the rest.
Interesting. Jane Street. New allegations claim that they had access to a private Telegram group with inside knowledge about Terra USD ahead of its 2022 collapse. One of the most serious market manipulation allegations in crypto history, if it proves to be true. And it's involving one of the most sophisticated trading firms.
Hey, if it's called crypto, it might be called that for a reason.
So the actual claim here is they had Jane Street had someone who used to be I think Jane Street had an intern that used to be part of Terra USD, or maybe I have it backwards. They were an intern in one place or the other. Anyways. But that person had still contacts with people working on the Terra project. Terra is a stable coin, which I need to learn more about stable coins, but the theory behind a stable coin is it keeps a relative value compared to the US dollar. So in this case, Terra was pegged at $1 per Terra coin. And the way that they accomplished that was it was married to another coin called Luna coin. Luna coin was supposed to have all the volatility. So what they would do is they would mint more Luna coin to offset devaluation in Terra coin, keeping it pegged at $1, and then the volatility goes over to the Luna coin. That's the theory behind it. It sounds kooky looking at it now in reverse. And it was all automated, and that went off by a little bit. People started freaking out. This thing had a $50 billion market cap somehow, and all that money started, run on the bank style, leaving. So both coins ended up crashing. And the allegation here is that Jane Street employees had a shared chat with Terra employees or workers or founders or whomever. And basically Terra knew of this instability. They took a lot of their money out of the project. I think all their liquidity they took out, Terra did. And then 9 minutes later, Jane Street did the same thing. Took a big chunk of it out. And then they made like $123 million betting against Terra USD.
The only way to do that legally is if you're a congressman. So
that's true. Pelosi can do that. Jane Street also has been accused of manipulating, not accused, but I think they've been found guilty of manipulating markets in India, and they're protesting it, whatever, but they were buying basically a market index in India, and the index in India was thin enough, had a small enough value that Jane Street could completely manipulate it. So they would put in 20% of the whole market value of India in the morning, and then they would take short positions on options, and then they would take their money out and they would win on the options. Crazy. Let's move on to the Trump administration now.
Yep.
Speaking of, quietly delayed an AI security executive order, with Trump explaining he didn't want the language slowing down AI development. The clearest signal yet that this administration will choose acceleration over guardrails.
The clearest signal after sending a mixed signal the last couple of weeks, and we did a whole section on the art of the deal. So what was the mixed signal? It was Vance and others, right, saying we may have to come to the table and talk about some AI guardrails, or at least talk about how we might release AI into the wild, particularly in national security applications. And that sounded like the administration was open to maybe slowing down AI and focusing more on safety. But what did I say? Well, it's art of the deal. So art of the deal is you float out some escalation, right? We're going to slow this down. Then you meet with the companies, and here's what we don't know. Trump immediately reverses it after these meetings to say we're now in favor of acceleration, as I've always been. We don't know what those conversations were and whether any sort of negotiations went on, whether the administration got some guarantees that it was looking for. We just don't know what could have reversed it in just a week, actually. So that you had one message 2 weeks ago, another one last week, and a new one this week. That looks like par for the course.
I don't know. I think it was maybe Jeff, Mark, Elon. We need some more money from the ballroom. So we're going to do this unless, we get that. Who knows? Yeah. I'm speculating.
Who knows?
Samsung's union authorized a strike at its memory chip plants, then pulled back to put a wage deal to a member vote. A prolonged strike there would have sent a real ripple effects through the global semiconductor supply chain.
Yeah. So I hinted at this earlier, that if you are in labor unions, you got to be very careful what your strategy is right now because this looks like a global race in AI,
Yep.
and having expensive labor is a disadvantage. You have companies coming up with humanoids, robotics, specifically to replace the people in your union. So what do? Is now the time to play hardball? And we're already seeing some of the reactions to the displacement, right, politically. What do you do as a labor union? I'm actually genuinely curious what they can do right now because there are products on the market that can displace your people
Yeah.
unless you get legal authority to block it. And could your strategy be one of augmentation? We're not against the humanoids if they're paired with our workers.
Yeah.
And it makes everybody more efficient, productive. So I think they have actually a really, really difficult environment to deal with right now, even in Europe. So Europe, I mean, Germany is a good example. They have extremely strong labor protections, and traditional German industrials are going for humanoids.
Yeah. I I don't know. It'd be interesting to talk to a labor leader. Maybe with something
Yeah.
we can look at doing. That would be kind of cool. I
It
don't
would be
know.
cool.
It's interesting. So Samsung, what did they do? I wrote it down here. They 48x'd their operating profit year over year. And that's why the labor union thinks that they want a piece of the pie. Now, I don't know what type of jobs they're wanting those bonuses for. If it's just machine operators, like,
But be careful. Profit is not cash. So we don't know.
no, it's fair.
And
And I don't mean to
you
disparage machine operators while I'm at it.
well, you also got to think every company out there right now is taking that cash and investing it heavily into AI and capital.
Yeah.
So there may not be cash left over for anyone.
Yeah.
Well, after the executive bonuses, of course. But so be careful when you're thinking through the financials that the profit doesn't just get distributed to executives and workers. It actually goes back into capital wealth. That's what capitalism is.
Yep.
And right now, there's heavy reinvestment into AI and redeployments of capital, ostensibly, right? It looks like they're investing into AI and then they justify the cuts to labor by those investments. So that's just a very difficult strategic playing field as a labor union.
Yeah.
Honestly,
No, I
that's
agree.
why I haven't really thought about labor union strategy before, but I think it's a very fascinating question.
It is. All right, Mike. Good fire hose. Appreciate it. Let's move on now to our main topic of the evening, Google I/O 2026. This week amounted to a full-scale reimagining of the company. Gemini 3.5 Flash is now powering AI agents across search, Gmail, Android, and design tools. Google is saying plainly that the traditional search results page is over. Mike, I was stunned by the sheer volume that Google rolled out at I/O. What were the things that stood out to you?
The volume,
Yeah.
I think you know where I'll go with this. When I see a litany of announcements, I'm sitting there thinking, as the strategist, how do they fit? How do they fit together? Because each one separately, you think, okay, interesting. So your main business model as Google was search, and now you're looks like you're abandoning that. I doubt they're fully abandoning it. I would say they're augmenting it to make it AI search. Did they have a choice? Because I know some of the articles are critical and they were advertising here are 6 other search engines you could go to.
Yeah.
I would bet most of those search engines are going to have AI integrated very soon.
Yep.
And the question is, with the search, this is just one example of strategy. How do they monetize that? How will they monetize like this AI overview of the search results, which then provide links? I don't know. But did they have a choice? I don't know because everything's moving to AI, which would attack their traditional search anyway. So the way it was in the past, I think Google's basically accepting, hey, our dominant business model is under threat. So kudos to them for at least thinking through it. Doesn't mean they're going to make the right decisions. But then the others, Gemini Flash 3.5, fastest model ever, agentic workflows, unleash 100 agents. Then you go to Spark. Then you go to Omni. And then the whole focus, I think, if you had to pick a strategy out of all that, it would be hard to connect them all. Is it B2C to say we have Drive,
Yeah. It
we
is.
have email, we have Gemini now, and we're just connecting those all together? And we wrap you into that ecosystem. And while you're in that ecosystem, the AI can reason on top of all the tools, the tool chain, whatever you want to call it, that ecosystem of products that we have, and make you more and more productive. I don't know. That's an interesting one. So that's more B2C. I didn't get so many hints that they're heading heavily into enterprise, other than they may be betting on the agentic workflows. Seems like they believe all these agents are going to be running out, hundreds of them, even that was in the presentation. My question on this usually is, who's buying these agents, all these agents? Because are these just for devs? Are they for enterprise? Are they for enterprise devs? Are these for just regular consumers in their B2C? I don't imagine most consumers being sophisticated enough to unleash agents.
No, they're not.
So that was a little bit incoherent to me. Is this your B2C play, B2B, dev play? How does it all fit together? I don't know. So
Well-
I saw some critique there. I think that was justified to say maybe it's too much, maybe it's incoherent, maybe the world's moving too fast for you and you're just throwing stuff at the wall like all of them.
Yeah. Well, let me give my perspective, because I'm an Android guy. I've always been an Android guy. I was late to the party on the iPhone, and by the time that I went and bought a phone, I looked at the specs, and I'm a gamer and I build computers, so I look at the specs and see what's underneath. And
You look beyond the brand.
Exactly. Samsung had a better product, in my opinion. Whatever. But I've been an Android guy ever since, I don't know, the beginning. S2, I think, is what I've had. I've had the flagship Samsung phone forever.
My daughter's with you. She's all of her friends like, why do you have an Android? And then they look at it and like, wait.
I mean, I had an
It's
OLED
better,
screen like 8 years before you guys. I don't understand it. So
Brand power brands, man.
yeah, and then I had people tell me that can you not afford the Apple? Come on, man, that's not.
Well,
that's
that's the hint. That's the hint. That statement right there is the entire hint of what that brand is.
Yeah.
It's social status.
Yep. And no, the flagship model for Samsung's
Good for them.
higher in most cases now. Anyhow, beside the point, I'm intrigued. So I'm intrigued because I use Google Keep, I use Gmail, I use all of these things on my Android devices. And now that I can have I have a button right here that I can get Gemini up on my phone. I've usually, I had Bixby, I think was Samsung's voice model. I had that crap disabled. I never used it. But now that Gemini's available, I have it on the Bixby button and I use it all the time when I just need to ask a question or whatever. I have Android Auto in the car. So now if I think of an asinine question that I really want to have answered while I'm driving,
You have Ford? You have a Ford?
I do have a Ford.
I think they have an Android partnership, right? I'm pretty sure.
Well,
Or they did.
I mean, I don't know the extent of
They
it,
have both,
but
maybe
there's a
these
lot
days.
of manufacturers who have both.
Yeah.
I've got wireless Android Auto in mine. It's really nice. Love it. Anyhow, but it also has wireless CarPlay. So when Amy hooks up her phone, it works great too. But mine does have Gemini in the car now, so I can ask it whatever questions I want and it'll tell me. Pretty cool. But I'm interested in using that. I may actually try later this summer going away from Claude for a couple months and just moving my subscription over to Gemini, just the $20 buck one, to see what it does. I don't know. I'm interested. It had a lot of cool things about it. I don't know if I'm really into YouTube voice interaction. I don't know. Maybe I'll try that and see what it does. I think that's going to be out soon, where you can AI search in YouTube. I don't know the usefulness of that, but I can tell you
It could be useful, to distill my babbling.
it could. And maybe it's a smarter search. Maybe they made search better.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. But I can tell you that Google has been making a really hard play for Microsoft's business in the enterprise environment with, the G Suite product is exactly their Microsoft clones. Docs is a clone of Word and Sheets is a clone of Excel. And they've tried to make it easy to, just use from a browser with limited success. I think for the home user who uses it for free, I think it's fantastic. It's a fantastic free software suite.
Yeah.
But for the enterprise perspective, anyone that I've had my customers move to G Suite have not been super happy about it. And that's after everyone complains about Microsoft and they hate it. But when they move away from Microsoft, they also complain and hate whatever they move to. Like, it's just, I don't know. Microsoft's compatible with everything. Anyways,
it's always
making that play
strange.
for a long time.
It's always strange to me in enterprise why you have to stick with one.
Money.
Yeah, I know, but it's just strange to me. Like, why can't you just have the best tools across different stacks? Why can't you use Slack and then something? Like, it makes no sense to me.
It's sticky. It depends on the company. For instance, Amy's company, they're deleting their Teams messages and their emails like on a monthly basis. My old company, I had years of Teams chats and emails that I had saved. So it depends on your organization. A lot of that stuff is sticky.
Well, the threat is like with SAP, same with Microsoft. If you even entertain one tool from another vendor, they'll pull the whole stack. They got a lot of leverage.
Yeah, it's very true. Check out another cool thing that I saw was Anti-Gravity 2 or Anti-Gravity 2.0. That's their Claude Code analogy. It's a kind of a cool thing. I can't remember how many hours. I think it was like 92 hours or something that they just put in a code, build an operating system from scratch, essentially. And so Anti-Gravity deployed like 185 agents or something in the process of making its own operating system. And then what they did live was they debugged it. It had a bug where it couldn't play Doom, I guess. So it had to do like the video drivers and stuff like that on the fly.
That was staged.
Well, it was staged up to that point, and then they, whatever. It was a cool concept to see AI on its own just give one line of code make.
I played Doom.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Doom, Duke Nukem, all that.
But
stuff.
I can't imagine any situation where I need to spin up my own operating system.
Never know.
Never know.
I don't know. So Omni was the other big thing. I think you mentioned a little bit, but it's essentially just, it's multimodal and it's from the same input. You can ask for a video or an image or written word, all from the same prompt place without having to go to different.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think you've seen criticism of AI, that it's been so dominated by LLMs and language.
Yep.
And I think Jan LeCun, however you want to pronounce his name, he's one of those critics that says, well, we're missing a lot of, and we saw a Mark Cuban clip about this too, we're missing a lot of the other media out there. One is the physical world itself, and you have pictures, and you have videos. So a lot of our human experience is simply not captured by text.
Yeah.
Particularly as people don't write as much or read as much anymore. So that's an interesting dynamic to watch with AI, is where does it move? What other media does it move into? Media in the sense environments, right? Does it go into more physical? I mean, you got the outer space play going on. You got, the cell level, chemicals, physical properties, right? There are all kinds of directions you could go with it. So I think you want to watch that too. I guess multimodal makes sense in that vein, that you want to take video as input, you want to be able to produce video, other media, right?
Yeah. They also made a big play into science. So they, these are just a list of the things that they released: Gemini for science, hypothesis generation, computational discovery, literature insights, which is pretty cool, science skills, which integrates 30 plus life sciences databases, and then literature insights. It searches scientific literature, structures results into custom tables, generates reports, slide decks, audio and video overviews of.
And they've already got Google Scholar, right? So
yeah, interesting. I think they've just, like you said, it was a huge volume of stuff. Plus the eyewear, the Meta glasses competitor, the Ray-Bans, the Meta Ray-Ban competitor.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever tried those? I haven't ever tried them personally. I've seen them on like YouTube, but I don't know. I mean,
I still just have Magnum PI glasses I bought at a gas station.
Well,
that's all I got.
Well, I don't know. I'm just the kind of guy who wants my question answered now. I don't know. I can just take my phone in my pocket though. I don't know. If like I'm the only person who can hear it, maybe, but it's like a speaker, right?
I'm also baffled why people wear watches when your phone is a watch. But maybe you can explain to people why you wear a watch.
Well, this one I wear specifically because of like the heart rate monitor stuff is cool. And also because my old job, I got so many emails that it was infuriating, just the extra couple seconds I saved reaching for my phone all the time, where I could just look at it and go, oh, that's important, that's not important, that's
high volume.
High volume. Like, it was good for that. And then honestly, watches are fashion. Like, it's one of the only fashion things men get to wear. So I actually do have some actual, that's a watch case back there. I actually do have some actual
Is
watches.
it an Apple Watch?
No, this is a Samsung watch. It's a Galaxy S.
Wanted to see if you were consistent.
Yeah, why would I? Okay. I do have some old Apple computers. Like, I have anyways, we can get that some other time. All right, let's move now to the SpaceX IPO, which SpaceX filed its S-1 this week for a NASDAQ IPO under the ticker symbol SPCX, targeting a $1.75 trillion valuation and a $75 billion raise. Both of those will be all-time records, by the way. The filing reveals XAI burned $6.4 billion last year, and that Musk retains roughly 85% of voting power on about 43% of the equity. Fortune called it potentially the least shareholder-friendly public company of all time. When you buy SPCX, you're essentially writing a blank check to Elon and his vision. What's your take on this monumental IPO, Mike?
It's that you're trusting a vision without knowing where it's going to go. So he's assembling an ecosystem. We can name the pieces, right? Cursor, Colossus, XAI. It looks like Starlink is a part of that package, which I actually find an interesting play as well, in SpaceX. So there's all of these different pieces of the ecosystem, and it's unclear how you might monetize all that. It's kind of like the NASA program. There were different innovations that came out of that were monetized, but it was unclear up front which ones they would be, like microwaves, Velcro, stuff like that. You can fact check me on that. Will it be like this with this? That Starlink is an interesting capability that he may try to go after traditional carriers with. Started out as an experimental play. So that could end up being its own business by itself. And you wonder, will Cursor be its own business? So is this a holding or is it one business? That's what's not clear, because that's a different business. It's a different strategy. If all, like Google's holding, you just heard it, right? They somehow fit Gmail, Drive, YouTube, Gemini. That ecosystem, at least on the stage, they're trying to show you how it all links together. I'm not sure how his links together at all, other than I'm the boss with the vision. I don't know. Or is it, we're just hoping one of these pays out? Well, nothing could really ever pay out 1.75 trillion, at least based on the information that we have now.
So interesting fact here, at least I think it's interesting. The entire aerospace plus defense market cap. You want to take a guess at what the entire aerospace and defense market cap is today?
Smaller than that.
1.7 trillion.
Yeah.
Smaller than the size of SpaceX. That's crazy to me. That's insane. So I've been seeing this stat all over the internet, and I know where it comes from, because I ran into the same thing when I was talking this over with Claude a couple weeks ago. Claude said, they lost in 2025 about $5 billion, 4.9, I think it was 4.98 billion. But what that $4.9 billion number is, that's the amount of loss that they experienced from merging with XAI. So when they merged with XAI, there was I don't know exactly how it works, but the cost of merging, that was the $5 billion there. The number that they lost last year was 2.6. That was their run rate. That's what they made.
Which is nothing
negative
for them.
Too. No, it's not nothing, but it's a less than zero number. It's a less than zero number. So I don't know. And they're
hey, you got to spend money to make money. Isn't that the way Americans sell?
Yeah. Some interesting things here. So Musk is getting bonuses in, let's see, the exact wordage here. I don't know if the exact wordage is important, but he's getting, okay. He's getting 1 billion performance-based restricted Class B shares, common stock going straight to Elon Musk, that will vest in 15 equal tranches tied to market capitalization milestones. So the first one being at 500 billion, a trillion, 2.5, whatever. That's 15 tranches all the way up to 7.5 trillion. He unlocks the full 1 billion performance-based restriction shares of Class B. However, in order for him to get all of those shares or any of those shares, SpaceX has to found a colony and it has to have 1 million inhabitants on Mars in order for him to get any of those bonus performance-based shares. Same thing for the XAI side of the house. In order for him to get he has the same tranche situation set up over there. And in order for him to get any of those bonus-based shares, he has to launch, or he has to have in, not production, but in orbit, space data centers targeting 1 terawatt, I think, of compute capacity.
How old is he?
Elon Musk? Older than me, I think, which that's pretty old.
So I'm just thinking how on earth he will ever have this happen.
He's 54.
In this lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got roughly
20, 30 years.
20, 30 years, right? 30 is at the high end for a male.
Probably.
Right? So, and who knows what his lifestyle is, if it's healthy or not. So
Who knows?
he's got a lot of money to pay for the medicine. So will he even be around for any of that? So on the one hand, you could say, okay, those are incredible bonuses. The structure is interesting, but it does give him an incentive to push.
Yeah.
If you listen, right, you got to get 1 million people on Mars to unlock these tranches. Well, what do you think the probability of that is?
I think the greatest
Not
probability
high in 20 to 30 years.
No, I think the greatest probability is that it is just another way to get people talking about it, to get people investing in it, to get people. He's great. He is so good at increasing the value of a company. It's insane. It's really insane. And I feel like,
value.
I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are like, what are you doing? But I don't know. It just keeps going up and up and up. And at some point you're like, well, shit, I'm not making money off it. I really need to be invested.
It's too late, though.
Well, okay. So Tesla, I think IPO'd. Let me look this up because I want to get it correct. But I think it was 1.6 or something. Let me see. Tesla IPO value. Tesla, 1.7 billion was a Tesla IPO. So if you got in Tesla day one, that's pretty good. That's what, 10 times? What are they now?
But that was before the hype machine really got off the ground.
No, that's
now it's an overdrive, right?
That's absolutely true. That's 100% true. But who knows if they do all those things and keep putting satellites in space. And
I mean, I admire the ambition. Just, I don't think I'd ever invest, though.
No, well,
I don't see it paying out in my lifetime unless it reaches that 7.5 trillion valuation. Unless you think you will come up with even better stories in the future that you'll get a good return.
So
that would be the game you'd have to play.
There's also something interesting happening now. I think NASDAQ is pursuing regulation around how quickly a new company can be listed in index funds. So I'm an index fund person, so I might be buying SpaceX very soon, whether I want to or not, just because they're going to be part of index funds really soon. And, they're a huge company. They're going to go straight to the top 10 companies in the world. Yeah. So it just kind of is what it is. So hopefully they grow. We will see. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. We hope you're as nerdy about business strategy as we are. We'll see you right here next week. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. Leave us a comment below. Let us know what you think, what you want to hear. If you think it would be cool if we had a labor union leader on the show to discuss, you think that would be cool? I kind of do. Let's see what happens. All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next week.
Mama, I think I made it. I'm kind of like Tulsa famous. I'm hanging out with Gary. Now they know what my name is. Feeling like Sir Mike, it's money in my name, bitch. Humble to perform on